In the 13th century BC, the world was rich. Gold flowed from Egypt. Tin came from Afghanistan. Copper was mined in Cyprus. Kings sat on thrones in palaces adorned with frescoes, lions, and lapis lazuli. The Hittites ruled Anatolia. The Mycenaeans built great citadels in Greece. The Egyptians controlled the Nile. They called each other brother. They traded, feasted, and believed their world would last forever. Then, in the space of a few decades, it all disappeared. Cities were burned. Palaces were abandoned. Writing systems were forgotten. Empires collapsed so completely that later generations believed they were myths. The Bronze Age ended, and the ones who ended it had no name. They came from the sea. The Egyptians called them the countries of the sea. In the great temple of Medinet Habu, Pharaoh Ramses III carved their images into stone. Warriors with horned helmets, ships with bird-shaped prows, women and children riding on ox carts, an entire people on the move. The inscription above them reads, "No land could stand before their arms." They destroyed the Hittite Empire. Hattusa, their capital, was burned to the ground. They destroyed the Mycenaeans. The palaces of Pylos, Tyrans, and Mycenae themselves were abandoned. They destroyed the city of Ugarit, a vital trading port. The last letter from Ugarit, never sent, says, "The enemy ships are already here. They are burning my cities. What have I done to you?" They even attacked Egypt. Ramses III gathered his army, his chariots, his fleet. He built a wall of shields along the Nile. In the great naval battle of the Delta, he ambushed the sea people's ships and turned them over in the water. The inscription at Medinet Habu records his triumph, but also his fear. They came forward toward Egypt, it says, and the flame was prepared for them. Egypt survived, but the world it knew was gone. The great empires of the Bronze Age never recovered. The trade routes that had connected the Mediterranean for centuries were silent. And for 300 years, the lands of the Eastern Mediterranean fell into darkness. The sea peoples had done their work. But who were they? Where did they come from? And why did they destroy everything? The Egyptians recorded their names, 9 groups. The Peleset, who would become the Philistines, biblical enemies of Israel. The Jeker, who later ruled the city of Dor. The Shekelesh, perhaps from Sicily. The Shurden, famous for their horned helmets. They had fought for Ramses II, and now they fought against him. And the Ghanaian, whom some believe were the Mycenaean Greeks, the same men who stormed the walls of Troy. Each tribe looked different. The Shurden wore tall, horned helmets and carried round shields. Their swords were longer than anything Egypt had seen. They were mercenaries who knew how to fight for gold. Now they fought for land. The Peleset wore high feathered headdresses and thrust with long spears. On the Medinet Habu reliefs, they are always in the front line. The Lukka from Lisha were pirates so fierce even the Hittites feared them. But the most striking detail is on the Egyptian reliefs. Among the warriors, there are women, there are children. After landing on the coast, the sea peoples did not move like an army. They moved like a people. Ox carts, loaded with the elderly, women, infants, their household goods, rolled inland. They were not just conquerors. They were refugees, refugees with swords. And their path can be traced through ash. They struck Cyprus. They burned its cities. They fell upon the coast of Syria and Canaan. Ugarit, the trading capital whose ships once sailed every sea, was erased from the map. Then they turned on the Hittites, city by city, fortress by fortress. And finally, they gathered on the borders of Egypt, the richest land, the strongest army, the last empire still standing. Who were they, really? Where did they come from? Scholars still argue. One theory says they were Greek veterans from the Trojan War, heroes who came home to find their palaces in ruins, their thrones usurped, their wives remarried. Penelope waited 20 years for Odysseus. Clytemnestra greeted Agamemnon with an axe. Those who had nothing to return to took their families, loaded their ships, and sailed away. They became the Sea Peoples. Another theory places them in western Anatolia. The Luwians, a people long overshadowed by the Hittites. They had their own cities, their own script, their own kings. After Troy fell, they may have united. They marched south, sweeping away the Hittite fortresses that had held them down for centuries. The Trojan War, in this telling, was just one battle in a larger war, a war that destroyed the old world. For centuries, no one knew who the Sea Peoples were. The Egyptians wrote of them, but never said where they came from. The Greeks had myths about a great war and a world that ended. The Hittites left only ashes. Then, in the 20th century, archaeologists began to piece together the evidence. The answer was not one people, but many, and their story may begin with the Trojan War. One theory: the Sea Peoples were Greek veterans returning from Troy. Homer's epics tell of heroes who fought for 10 years. When they finally came home, they found their palaces burned, their thrones usurped, their wives remarried. Some turned to piracy, some gathered fleets, some took their families and sailed for new lands. They became the Sea Peoples, heroes without a home. Another theory points to western Anatolia. The Luwians, a people long overshadowed by the Hittites, had their own cities, their own script, their own kings. After Troy fell, they may have united. And then there is climate. Tree rings from Anatolia show years of drought. Grain shipments stopped. The great empires, built on trade, began to starve. The Sea Peoples were not just warriors. They were people fleeing famine. Professor Ralph Hawkins from Harvard University, who studies the Sea Peoples, summarizes the debate. Some scholars believe they were Greek veterans. Others point to the Luwians. And many now argue that climate change was the real driver. What we know for certain: they were a confederation of diverse groups, fleeing famine, searching for a new home. Their migration included families, cattle, and carts. This was not just an invasion. It was a mass movement of people. The Sea Peoples left no monuments. They left no writing. They left no name. We only know them through the eyes of their victims. The Egyptians called them destroyers. The Greeks called them barbarians. The Hittites called them death. But one thing is certain: they changed the world. And then they vanished, as mysteriously as they came. Some settled in Canaan. The Peliset gave their name to Philistia, enemy of the Israelites. The Jeker ruled the city of Dor. The Shurden became mercenaries for the pharaohs. They stopped being Sea Peoples. They became farmers, merchants, soldiers. They assimilated into the lands they had conquered. They became part of the new world they had created. And the sea forgot them. We may never know the full truth. The Sea Peoples left no records of their own. Their cities, if they had any, have not been found. Their language is lost, but their legacy is everywhere. In the ruins of empires they destroyed. In the stories of heroes who never came home. In the silence that followed the Bronze Age. They came. They destroyed. They vanished. And the world was never the same. The world they destroyed never recovered. The Hittite Empire vanished forever. The Mycenaean palaces stood empty. Ugarit no longer traded. The trade routes that had connected the Mediterranean for centuries were severed. For 300 years, the eastern Mediterranean sank into a dark age. People forgot how to write. They forgot how to build with stone. They forgot that their ancestors had once ruled the world. The Greeks who emerged from this darkness told legends of heroes who fought at Troy, of kings who returned home to find their kingdoms in ruins. They did not know that the sea peoples had left those ruins. The name was lost, the memory was buried. Only the stones remained, and the silence. Today, archaeologists walk through the ruins of Hattusa, Mycenae, and Ugarit. They read the tablets of desperate kings, begging for grain that never came. They study the reliefs at Medinet Habu, where the sea peoples still march across the stone. They argue about where they came from, who they were, what drove them. But the ruins do not speak. They only wait. Among the ruins of Ugarit, the wind carries salt from the sea. The stones have been silent for 3,000 years. The harbor where the ships of the sea peoples once appeared on the horizon is empty now. A question lingers in the air. Who were they? Did they know what they were doing? Or were they, too, just trying to survive?